Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of All Access. And there's a lot to discuss today. And in particular, I want to geek out on you and tell you about something really exciting and really interesting and somewhat technical, and maybe orient you around this whole emerging field of decentralization and privacy in cryptocurrency exchanges. So let me get there. So let's get started. I have some slides to help me structure this discussion. So, not that. Where is this? Here we go. So let's get going. I want to talk to you about enclave markets. So we just unveiled a new kind of a market, a new kind of an exchange. And I want to tell you about how it works. So in a nutshell, Enclave Markets is an institutional grade digital asset trading platform, blah, blah, blah. It's like the best of centralized and decentralized finance. Forget all this. There's a new kind of exchange. Okay, so forget the marketing speak. You knew about centralized exchanges, you knew about decentralized exchanges, and I want to tell you about an entirely different kind of an exchange. And you should listen carefully because this kind of step up doesn't happen all that often. I told you when it happened, I said this is really exciting, want to revisit it. This is a good time to revisit it and talk about how this thing will revolutionize the way we trade, not only crypto, but also everything else. So let me tell you about it. So, this is not good. Give me a second, because I'm spilling everything. I can't do that. Let's stop the sharing. So, yeah, let's stop the sharing. Give me a second to fix up my slide deck here. Oh, yeah, we can't have that happen. Hang on. Clearly, okay, now we're good. Back with our originally planned programming. Okay, now we can share the slides. Thank you. So this is Enclave Markets. The big idea is there's a new kind of exchange in town. There's a new game in town, and I want to tell you all about this new game. So how is this new game played? Well, before I tell you about it, let me tell you a little bit about the current game. And the current game has two kinds of different players, and we're introducing a third. We've done this before with consensus protocols, and it completely changed the game. We are by far the fastest platform. Look at any metric that you like, especially not TPS. That's an easy metric to game. Everybody games that. I'll talk about that later. Even on that gamed metric, organically, we're outdoing the competition. But look at time to finality. This is by far the fastest. Look at decentralization. By far the most decentralized platform we deliver to you. Now I want to talk to you about how we're delivering an entirely new kind of exchange. Now, centralized exchanges, NASDAQs, New York Stock Exchange. Actually, technically, NASDAQ is really a conglomeration of exchanges. Doesn't matter. If you think about any kind of an exchange that you're familiar with, Binance, FTX, etc., these are centralized operations. They are typically centered around a central limit order book. So if you ever hear me mention a CLOB, I'm referring to a central limit order book. What that means is there's a set of people who are ready to buy at different prices. There's a set of people who are ready to sell at different prices. There's a spread between them. And occasionally people cross the spread to either affect a sale or to affect a buy. It's a very straightforward model, and somebody operates these things. It's a highly regulated business, of course, because the person who runs this business is in a tremendous position of power. Tremendous position of power. Like if you thought Mark Zuckerberg has a lot of power over our data, these people have an enormous amount of power over the financial activities they control. And these structures, this architecture, obviously carries custodial risk. They take your assets, they hold them for you, they make all this matching happen, and should anything go wrong, then you will lose your tokens because you don't have them, they have your tokens. Right? So the crypto space is rife with examples here. Quadriga, and there's a fascinating show about it on Netflix. If you haven't seen it, you should see it. And I followed that closely. I knew some of the people there. And really, really fascinating story where a founder disappears with all of the funds on an exchange. This can happen, right? And about 100 years ago, it used to happen with equities and so on. Now it's happening in crypto quite a bit. So when you are dealing with a centralized exchange, you end up having to rely on them for everything. Even if the founders are fine, they can have security flaws, security issues that cause them to lose your coins. So these are all problematic situations, and but you are open to them when you use a club. Clubs are really, really fast. Maybe I should have that in green here. They're very fast, very high performance. So if you go to them and you want to trade, well, they have it right there, and that convenience is really worth its weight in gold. I think people flock to these clubs for that reason. The performance advantages are huge, but they come with custodial risk. In addition, they come with front-running risk. So your order flow, which is precious, our order flow, which is precious, ends up getting front-run. We saw this with the GameStop debacle, where Citadel was paying the Robinhood guys for the order flow. And so they sat in that flow and they got to see where retail was going. And if you can see where retail is going and you have huge pots of money, you exploit the retail, you jump ahead of them. And we saw this in crypto as well, allegedly. Actually, no, it has been decided in some cases for a couple of exchanges where the exchange operators were running ahead of big orders that come into their exchange. There are many other attacks that these people can run. Another one that, the term you should know is stop loss hunting. So suppose there's a big whale, they've established a big position, and but when a whale establishes a position like this, they have various different protections they put into place. For example, suppose you buy token X at $100, and then you put an order to sell at 85 because that's your stop loss. Well, then what people can do if they have big pots of money is dump the price on X, dip it down to 84, trigger your sell, buy your tokens, let it rise back up. And now that they took your tokens, they're richer, and the token price goes back up because it was a synthetic move. They ended up robbing you. They end up liquidating you. Similarly, if you use leverage, right, you used some amount of leverage, at some point you will get liquidated and your tokens will be sold at fire sale prices. Well, then these people with big pots of money that can come in, drop the price, liquidate, let the price rise back up, having taken your tokens. It's called stop loss hunting. Incredibly illegal, but very hard to actually know or find or what have you. It's how are you going to prosecute this? All of the evidence for what happened is just off the books. You can see stop loss hunting or effects of it when there are these BARTs and reverse BART formations, right? People complain about these. So price suddenly jumps up in a step function and then goes back down. So those are, at least everyone claims that that's because a big whale is doing one of these things. Could be many other things, of course, we don't know. And that's the point. You just don't know. You and I cannot know. Inspectors post facto can it's very hard for them to discover malfeasance of this kind. And then the last position, our last problem, is that when a big whale has established a position, word gets out, right? Bill Icahn, when he buys a lot of one kind of stock, word gets out that he's buying and then other people pile into it. And, maybe Bill Icahn probably does some of that leakage himself. But in many other cases, you don't want the world to know that you have established a position. You definitely don't want the world that you are establishing a position. You're partway into it. If word gets out, other people will pile in. Your cost to enter is going to go up. So these are all huge problems with centralized exchanges. These are the reasons why they have to be regulated so heavily, because after all, if they're not regulated, then they'll play all kinds of games that go against a free market, that go against retail. So that's centralized exchanges. All of the risks associated with it. I wanted to just kind of bring it up into the same framework and set you up for what is about to come. Now you know about DEXs. DEXs are exchanges that take place on chain. They come in two varieties. There's the AMMs, which always provide a price and always provide a pool to trade against as long as the pool is liquid. Or they could be like clubs. Dexalat is an example of a club. DXDY is an example of a club. That's a decentralized exchange. It has a central limit order book, buy orders, sell orders, and you trade up and down on them. These are very, very sensible. And they fix a few things that are, fix one big thing that is a problem with centralized exchanges. They are non-custodial. Your tokens are not with somebody who has ultimate control over them. Your tokens are part of a smart contract. They cannot be taken from you unless you authorize a trade of some kind. So that's a huge step up, as long as the smart contract is correct, and that's why it's very, very important to get audits and security checks done over smart contracts. As long as the contract is correct, the nature of a DEX is that the tokens continue to belong to you. So that's really cool. That is something that we have to give them. They're wonderful, fantastic. That's a good thing to have. But they themselves have a big problem in the sense that all information about the DEX is public. So front running is possible. It's also known, front running is just one kind of value extraction, but there are many other kinds of value extraction because the orders going into DEXs are visible to all. And there are people called MEV searchers who jump in, they jump ahead of your order, they can sandwich your order, etc., etc. There are many other MEV attacks, and there are people out there who are actively using them to extract value. So you cannot trade on Uniswap, for example, without somebody doing some MEV trickery on you. It's just, or at least you couldn't until the ETH2 merge. I haven't followed. I'm sure it's continuing to happen. So these are all fundamental problems with centralized exchanges and decentralized exchanges. Now, I want to tell you about something that this new company called Enclave introduced. Enclave is a spin out from Ava Labs, and so they have a wonderful new product that uses some of the same core concepts that were utilized in the Ethereum Avalanche and the Bitcoin Avalanche bridges. Okay, so very cool new technology, only possible with the kinds of innovation that brought us to where we are in the crypto space. So we're taking advantage of the crypto nature of these assets, and we're taking advantage of other trustless technologies that we've been building and using in the bridges. So let me tell you about fully encrypted exchanges, or also known as FEXs. Okay, so you have SEX. So I think there's people call these SEXs. So it's weird, but anyway, CEX, centralized exchanges, decentralized exchanges, and now we have the fully encrypted version. So again, you have a club. Again, you have people who are, you don't have to have a club. You can have an AMM version of the same thing also if you want it to. But at the moment, it's kind of like a club with orders that are sitting in there. And they're non-custodial. Okay, so the exchange operator does not have access to the private keys that move the assets. Those keys belong to the smart contract that implements the fully encrypted exchange. Technologically, that smart contract does not execute on-chain. It executes in a trustworthy execution environment, in a private execution environment. I'm going to get back to the tech behind this on the next slide, I think. But technologically, it's different. It's not on-chain. So Enclave Markets is implementing its own system that holds your order, takes your orders, and facilitates a matching. But it itself, the operators, the system administrators behind the Enclave Markets don't have access to the private keys. They're held in special hardware, and even the sysadmins cannot get to those keys. So it's non-custodial. It's free from MEV. The exchange cannot and will not front run, will not allow anybody else to come in between your order and its execution. Think of it as a smart contract that executes one transaction at a time. And as the transaction comes in, it comes in encrypted, it's decrypted, and as soon as it's decrypted, atomically it's executed. So there is no opportunity for someone to see and jump ahead of your transaction. It's not going to leak out. As soon as it's decrypted, it is immediately executed. And it's also free from preferential market access. Everybody is equal in front of FX. Okay, so you and I will just submit our orders. There is no Citadel that is, getting a special data feed, a data hose, or whatnot. It's just we all send our transactions. They get executed in FIFO order, first in, first out order. And one of the most important things about this thing is it's fully confidential. Okay, so what does that mean? Your orders, your positions, your stop loss orders, they're all confidential. No one knows. Suppose you use some insane amount of leverage, etc., and you're going to get liquidated, or you have a standing order, etc. No one will know when it is, what that stop loss point is. They can't hunt for it because no one can know. Similarly, suppose you've been buying up a storm of some token X. No one knows. Okay, so there are regulatory requirements with FX. So in case regulators ask, there's a whole issue. The FX doesn't mean this is an anything goes kind of a marketplace. It's compliant, but to the public, no one knows. To the sysadmins, no one knows. So let's see, where else do we go from here? The very first product that Enclave ended up putting out is something called Enclave Cross. Okay, it's a crossing network, and it does something very, very interesting that I think is really, really cool. So it implements what's called a crossing network. So it will take orders for some period of time. Imagine it working like this. So buy and sell orders come in, and they kind of sit there. And every now and then, there's a cross operation that's performed where the matching orders are matched all at once, and you get your tokens back. So imagine, here's the use case for this. Imagine that there's a big fund, and they want to buy $1 billion worth of Avacs. And imagine that there is another fund that wants to sell $1 billion worth of Avacs. So normally what would happen, well, as the first fund comes in, let's suppose the sellers are there first. Sellers come in, they sell, they drive the price down. The buyer comes in, buys and buys and buys, and drives the price back up. But in the process, it creates a huge market disruption. Why? Just because in time, these people were displaced a little bit, and also because in both centralized exchanges and decentralized exchanges, the trades happen with market impact. The market impact is not decoupled from the matching operation. So in Enclave Cross, all of the orders are market orders, and they come in, and if there's a match, suppose there's somebody who wants to sell $1 billion worth of Avacs, right? The order is sitting there. You come and match against it, your order is executed, and the two of you match without impacting the market price. So imagine somebody wants to sell 10 B of Bitcoin. Okay, so that will definitely move the price. And you ideally, so what FX can do is it can make that trade happen with another set of people who want to buy that much worth of BTC without impacting the price. The person who's selling at the 10 billion worth at the current market price is happy with the market price, right? And the other people who want to buy, they're happy with the market price. That match happens with no impact on market pricing, with full execution guarantee of freedom from anybody running in front of you. In fact, no one knows that there's a trade out there that somebody wants to sell $10 billion worth of BTC. That's an amazing situation to be in, right? So these whales have to rebalance their portfolios. A bunch of tokens have to exchange hands. As we have more institutions coming in, they need to rebalance their books on a weekly, maybe sometimes daily basis. So those kinds of big trades have to happen ideally with no market impact, and ideally they would kind of balance each other out. And but at the moment, you can't really do this either through centralized or decentralized exchanges. In fact, decentralized exchanges they're great, they're easy to use, but they're not really institutional grade at all. Institutions don't really use them. It's just not, they just can't do it. And it's just because of the fact that all the information is public, and if the world gets a whiff of the fact that some particular big whale is going in or out of an asset, it would move the markets adversely, usually. So FEXs fix all of these problems all at once. You want the best execution at the best price? Well, they're there for you. You want confidential execution? They're there for you. You want to hide your position? they're there for you. And so that's what Enclave Markets has implemented. So it's a secure, confidential marketplace. Even the people working inside Enclave, the company, they have no idea what anyone's position is. They can find out in response to a subpoena, I think. But they're unable to figure out. Someone who's a sysadmin cannot leak information. This kind of information, by the way, leaks all the time in crypto. So we all have friends, and friends have friends, and even though they have friends, and by the Milgram experiment, that within 6 hops we can reach anyone on Earth. So within a few hops, typically, this crypto is a pretty small space. Everybody reaches everybody. So if there's a big foundation that's selling coins, everybody knows. There's a big whale getting in, everybody knows. And Enclave Cross allows people to affect these kinds of whatever, to buy whatever they want without anybody else knowing. So that's a very nice situation to be in. And it's built entirely within a trustless execution environment. So it's implemented on top of Avalanche, of course, and it allows you to trade Avalanche assets. So BTC.B, ETH.E, so bridged BTC, bridged Ethereum, and all of the Avalanche assets, they're all tradable. So I'm hoping that with more market acceptance of superior exchanges like FEX's, we're going to see a lot more assets move on to Avalanche, because people will demand a very fast crossing network. They will demand confidentiality out of their exchanges. And so that, I think, is going to be a big draw for uses of the chain. I'm really excited about this. This was unveiled only recently, early on in September. I've been mentioning it, I think, but I'm supremely excited about what it can do. They just lifted the limits. They've been running in sort of a test mode with very low limits. The biggest order you could put in to Enclave Cross was like $10,000. Now it's gone up to $50,000. A bunch of trades have already taken place. A bunch of institutional players have come in and tested this thing out. So it's really neat. It's just it doesn't happen all that often that somebody introduces something entirely new. Now, crossing networks, if you look them up, you'll find their history. And one of our advisors, a colleague of mine from Cornell, Maureen O'Hara, played a really big role in their widespread adoption in the equities market in the 90s and early noughts. So the equities markets use these things, and they're interesting, and they allow, again, big funds to rebalance their books. They create a lot of liquidity. They're fantastic to have. So, but when crossing networks were built in the 90s and noughts, they were built, again, with sysadmins knowing information. That technology still relied on the human element for its security. And now we have truly unconditional security for this. So the confidentiality requirements are unconditional. The best match requirements, the freedom from MEV and front running, unconditional. So they don't depend on the human element. You don't have to trust a single soul other than the secure hardware on which this operation takes place. And because the hardware is executing the code natively, it's super fast. We're not limited to any blockchain speeds. You just got to get your assets into the secure enclave, and then from the enclave, you affect your trades and you exit without impacting the markets. So this thing is really, really cool, and I highly suggest you check it out, and you tell your friends who work at large institutions that, hey, there's a new kind of tool, and this new kind of tool will likely be very useful to anybody whose size is size, in Do Kwon's words. So if you're a big player, take a look. Even if you're not, take a look. There is a minimum size. There should be a minimum size. There needs to be a minimum size to operations on Enclave. At the moment, it's very low, just because it's in testing mode. But over time, it's going to go up. So this is not really for regular retail usage. This is for really, really large block movements that would otherwise have big impact on the markets. So, I should mention, There are different kinds of crossing networks. There are continuous crosses versus timed crosses. At the moment, this thing is operating in the Enclave Cross is operating in continuous mode. So if you submit an order and there's a standing order, it matches immediately. So you get that bit of information maybe out of this market. The price of getting that information is a minimum size trade, which at the moment is very low. So that should be a draw, but over time will go up. So this is an exciting setup. So check it out. I'm kind of excited because I was involved in the writing of the software for this thing. I have no connection to the running of the market or whatever it does. It's business trajectory, but I am excited about the tech. It's a really cool bit of kit. Nobody else can do this. Even the TradFi guys, at the end of the day, have to trust the crossing network operators, and so it just goes by blind faith and trust. Whereas this thing is guaranteed by hardware to be doing what it's doing, what is ensconced in the code. Okay, let's move on. Core beta launch. So Core is coming out very, very soon. And I sent out this call for help. So hey friends, that's FRENS. Core app has made great strides, and now it's time to make it even better. This thing has to be, and there's no reason for it not to be, the best wallet ever. And it should be your one-stop wallet. That's the vision. So come check it out. If there's a feature you would like to see, let me know, or let us know. If there's some kind of an issue that you found, let me know. If it's a performance issue, too many windows, which I think was a problem in the earlier days, whatever is doing something is too inconvenient, let me know. This thing, as it is a browser extension, and it's beautiful. I think it's in many ways so much better than MetaMask that I can't go back. But there are ways in which it could be better. I'm sure there are many features that could be put in there that we haven't thought about. So please, I need your best brains. I need your best suggestions. Come and help us make it better. It's going to add support for the PNEX chains. I know that that's missing. That's coming. And of course, there's going to be a mobile version and a desktop version. So those are all coming. They're all in the works. I've alluded to them before. So, but check it out. Provide us your feedback. So all feedback submissions will be reviewed. We'll give you some Avacs. We'll give you some swag. There's going to be a sweepstakes for a free pass to the summit in 2023. I cannot wait for the summit. I just can't. It's going to be so cool. It was the best conference I've ever been to. And you might think I'm biased, but I'm very good at putting my biases aside. I think that place was amazing. It was better than any academic conference I've been to. It was better than any industry conference by a mile and a half that I've been to. The feeling in the air was so cool. I'm so proud of the community you have built. And it was so fun for me. I did lose my voice there, but it was totally worth it. I would do it again and again. I can't wait to do it again. So it's going to be coming up in the spring, early spring. Okay, how to provide Core app. So you go to core.app, download it, try it out. Try to get some NFTs in. It shows you your NFTs. You can look at them. It's beautiful. They're beautiful. You can send them and so on. You can just send them around and out. It's good to connect to any subnet. So you can go to DFK right there and do stuff on DFK if you wanted to, or you could go to the Swimmer network, what have you. It's all there for you. Supports all of the Avalanche subnets. It also supports Ethereum. Also supports every other EVM-based chain. So there are a whole bunch of these chains. Some of them call themselves L2s. Some of them call themselves, whatever else that they call them, something that's like a probability distribution across names. But at the end of the day, they're just EVM chains, and the wallet just supports them. So please send us your feedback, and if you hunt for those on the support pages or in this tweet here, there is a link to the place where you can submit, or the places where you can submit feature requests, bugs, or general feedback. So, okay, one more thing. So BTC has collateral on Avalanche. So BTC has come. So various people are beginning to notice, and BTC.B, so that's BTC that's been bridged over to Avalanche, is now available on Aave. So what does that mean? So that means that you can use your Bitcoin as collateral. So when does this make sense? When you want cash, but you don't want to sell your Bitcoin. Okay, so you believe in Bitcoin, and you've got, I don't know what, suppose you got one Bitcoin, 20K, and you need cash, and you don't want to sell, right? So you think it's going to go up. I think it's going to go up from here. So what do? Well, you could take your 20K of Bitcoin, 20K worth of Bitcoin, that single BTC, and bridge it over using the Core app. Makes it super easy. Bridge it over, put it into Aave, and get some money out. You're not going to, I mean, unless you're a fool, you're not going to take the entire value out. You need collateral, and you need to be able to absorb some downward motion in price. So let's say you take out 10K against your 20K worth of BTC. So as long as the price is above 10K, you get to keep your Bitcoin, and you get to use 10K you borrowed against it. And so you can go use that. You can take it out in USDC. You can take it out in Avacs, use the Avacs to buy NFTs, whatever. The sky is the limit on what you want to do with it. But you don't have to sell the coins to borrow against them. Of course, to be sure, if the price of Bitcoin hits 10K, then your collateral will be taken away by Aave, and Aave will sell it. That's just the nature of over-collateralized lending. So be aware of the risks, do your own research, but there is now a new ability to get cash without having to sell your assets. These lending platforms are really, really cool, and they are a definite step up from TradFi, essentially, when it comes to these kinds of activities. Super convenient. You can just do it. It takes 2 seconds, 5 seconds. Actually, it takes a little longer. You have to bridge your BTC. That's the part that takes a while. But once your BTC is bridged, then you can send Bitcoin immutably within a second. So once it's BTC.B, it becomes really fast to move it. So first you wait for the Bitcoin transaction to be approved, to be final. That takes 6 confirmations. After 6 conf, it's in Avalanche, and then you can send that around. There's a lot of it. There's just a little bit less in Avalanche than there is in Lightning Network. So it's getting to par with the Lightning Network, and so that's kind of cool. So I think that's somewhere slightly north of 50% of Lightning, I think. So once it's in Avalanche, then you can use it for a whole lot of things. You can borrow USDC against it, or any of the other stable coins, and then you can use USDC for your heart's desire, whatever it might be. And the Core wallet does this super easily. So it just automates everything. You can watch it do its thing. It has some graphics showing you where you're waiting and so on. Try it. It's so fun. And there's no intermediary. You don't have to go through any company. You don't have to set up an account. It's all self-custodied coins. Do be careful with self-custody. So you have to set up your wallet properly. The wallet will check that you wrote your mnemonic. This is a standard operating practice for all crypto. But I should probably mention it. Okay, and then, this was an interesting thing. I don't have all that much. I'd rather take your questions, really, but these slides I found a little bit interesting. So something happened to Bitcoin and all of crypto. So this is an interesting graph. On the x-axis, we have time, and so Macrocephalopod ended up doing some kind of a correlation analysis with SPX versus BTC. So the correlation is shown on the y-axis there. Y-axis there. So 0 means the two assets are uncorrelated, and 1 and -1 means they're positively or negatively correlated. So for the longest time, all the way until January 2020, these assets were uncorrelated. Okay, so what does that mean? Bitcoin had a life that had nothing to do with SPX, with equities. And then suddenly, starting in March 2020, there was significant positive correlation, and then in the time since then, it got even stronger. So this is interesting, and we should know about this and take this into account when we make investment decisions and so on. So this tells me that institutions are coming in. Okay, so this tells me that people are coming into this space whose portfolios have both crypto and equities, and in particular, they typically are correlated with the growth stocks. So What does that mean? Well, so it means, and so why are these correlated? Maybe we should talk about this. So is there a hidden hand behind the market? No, this is typically something that happens when, suppose the same person owns some asset X and Y. And suppose that they are doing in TradFi, it's considered conservative to do 4x leverage for whatever cultural reasons that they have. So suppose they're leveraged 4x in equities, and they also hold some crypto. And you can see this they probably start getting into crypto in January 2020. So they have made a bunch of gains in crypto, and now they hold a stock like Tesla. Okay, so when Tesla dips down, they will get margin called on their leverage position in Tesla, and they have to sell something to compensate, to lower their stop loss point, or to lower their liquidation point. So how is that going to happen? Well, that happens because by them selling when Tesla prices are going down, and that creates a positive correlation between those two things. And conversely, when Tesla goes up a lot, well, then they have to rebalance their portfolio, and that causes some flows in. So that is what gives us this positive correlation, one of the main fundamental factors. And this changed drastically. I think this is a coming of age moment. So this is how we know large institutional funds now hold positions in crypto. And those positions are probably tiny, because this is how, it's just based on casual conversations with people who work in TradFi. And my expectation is that it's going to grow, especially as we bring in more real world assets onto chains. There's going to be cryptographic assets, digital assets that these people hold more and more of. We just sort of grease the wheels with the initial coins that they were comfortable with, and it's going to grow from there. That's my expectation. So it's really nice to see data. It is what it is, and make of it what you will. But it's undeniable. It's just a scientific public fact that it's here. So let me take some questions, and I thought that correlation was interesting, and it's good to see institutional adoption. So let me see what questions are there. Yeah, scammers are everywhere. Scammers are everywhere in general. You have to do your own research. Oh, okay, no, I'm looking at random stuff. Okay, thoughts on Brave browser? Yes, I love Brave browser, and it's a great team, and Brandon Ike and his team are fantastic. Very excited about the things that they've built. Very much would like to have a Web3, a web experience where I know my data is not being monetized and sold. And so that's the Brave browser is something I use. So I like it a lot. What's my secret to being fit? Great, lots and lots of stress every now and then. No, I'm kidding. Do I go to the gym? Work? Yes, I wake up at 2 a.m. every day. I do 2 hours. No, I don't. I don't do anything. Have you guys seen these crazy things that people post, these life hacks and so forth? You know, how to be a successful CEO. These people all wake up at 4 a.m. and then they meditate for an hour. They achieve inner peace. They do all sorts of other things. That's not me at all. I'm not that kind of a person. I'm a much more driven, much more high-strung kind of person. I sleep when I sleep, whatever it is, 7-8 hours a day. And so then I wake up like a normal person, and I do my work. I do try to exercise, and I swam a lot this summer. It was fantastic. I dove a lot this summer. When I was a kid, I was actually very good at diving, free diving. And this last summer, I ended up buying myself long fins, these fins that I couldn't afford when I was 18, when I was 15. And they really help a lot, it turns out. And anyway, so I can dive to not as deep as I used to. I can still go like down 20 meters or so. So it's not bad. I want to improve on that. Any weight training routine, I swear, yeah, just lift heavy weights. That works out okay. And the keto diet is useful. I'm not one of those crazy keto people. I have a pizza party every now and then at my place, and I'm not too strict. And if you see me at a conference or something, I'll eat the normal food. I won't just eat meat. But yeah, no, I try to exercise a little bit. Do I even lift? Is a question. I try to. I used to do more of it. Hi fam, indeed. And yeah, I'm glad you guys like these discussions. I do. I love them. So everyone's saying, hey, yeah, GB, guys. Is the stream laggy? I don't know. People always want me to do these in Turkish. I can't do them in Turkish. It's like all the terms are in English. It's it would take all of my mental effort just to try to convert them into Turkish. I occasionally do an AMA. Um, right. Any updates on removing bloat? Is this the state bloat? Yes. Super pruning. And it's there's a whole lot of things to do. Bloat is only bloat if your database is unable to handle what's happening underneath it, right? So the state grows, and if you just treat your database as whatever it as God intended, you'll run into trouble. So you really have to think about your data layer, and so expect. I mean, I think I've publicly mentioned Cedrus DB. That was 2 generations of database ago. And we have some new database technology that we've been working on for many years now, building on every lesson we learned through Cedrus, through Level DB, of course, through RocksDB, through Cedrus, through, there's a whole bunch of others whose names I'm not going to mention. So yeah, there's cool stuff coming up there. There's a lot one can do, and rest assured that I have a whole team dedicated to ensuring that state as it grows is not problematic for a blockchain, or specifically our blockchain. Okay. John Woo mentioned the importance of Reed's law. Yes. So I think that we should make bridging and communicating between subnets easier to make Reed's law a reality. Exactly. So Reed's law is essentially this thing that says that network effects will grow exponentially. So this is such a long discussion to have, and then a good one. So first of all, I'm not a huge believer in Reed's law for crypto. What do I mean by that? Suppose you have a community with N people in it. Those N people don't interact with all other N people. Okay, so let this sink in. What does that mean? Bitcoin, huge community. A lot of people hold Bitcoin. That's great. We love Bitcoin. But the network effects within that community are not very strong. Those people interact primarily with a small number K of exchanges. They don't, I very rarely have sent any BTC to anyone. It's just incredibly rare that anybody does this. So people just sell them and on exchanges and interact with a small number of other entities, but it's not N squared. So what does this mean? Maybe this might seem like a technical point, but this is one of the things that made me go into this space. I believe that the incumbent advantage is not that strong. Bitcoin has many other advantages, mainly its liquidity and healthy markets and its name brand recognition. Those are fantastic advantages that will ensure that Bitcoin is here for a while to come. But the network effects that are often touted by Bitcoin maxis are actually not there. So it's N people interacting with K services. Well, those K services now all support Avacs. And so the network effects that you see in Bitcoin can be easily transported over to an asset like Avalanche. But you do want people to be able to interact across subnets, and you want the cross-subnet communication to be as cheap as possible. So expect a lot of changes on this front and a lot of forward motion on this front. So let me leak 2 bits of alpha. One of them is already public. The latest Avalanche Go 1.8.6 contains a bunch of code in there for BLS signatures. So BLS signatures, if you know what those are a way to establish certificates, or a way to get a certificate from a subnet that something happened without having to trust an oracle. So with BLS signatures, we can have the subnet say something. Prior to a subnet, you'd have to have an oracle say something. It's like I, an observer of the DFK chain, see that Joe deposited so many whatever token into this whatever address. Okay, so that's the kind of statement you need from an oracle. With BLS signatures, you can get that statement from the underlying subnet validators directly, and that makes everything a lot less. Well, you take out one more intermediary, and it's a universal messaging system as well. It can carry messages as well. So that's coming, and that's going to make inter-subnet communication a lot easier, a lot simpler. And so I think that's the answer you wanted to that question. We're working on it. It's partly deployed already. It's coming. Unlike many other chains, we don't do announcements of announcements of announcements. We don't. Yeah, I don't do this. It's just not our style. I think that's kind of weird. It's just, I just find it ethically weird, like et cetera, et cetera. We probably should, because everybody else is doing it. But whatever. It's coming, and we just released the code without fanfare. Without the prof, I wouldn't be aware of this new tech. Yes, you know why? Because even with the prof, the world wasn't aware of this new tech. So I'd been working on secure execution enclaves for I don't know how many years. I think I started in 2005. So it's been 17 years of effort. And there's a lot of pushback whenever you want to bring in technology like this. I started with trusted platform modules, something that you have in your laptop. If you use BitLocker, it was used in BitLocker, but old tech now. But now we have much better technology. We have the same thing, not in hardware coprocessors, but inside secure processors. And that's a really cool thing to have. So, but people were sitting on it. People didn't know what to do with it. And I keep saying this to the internal team at Ava Labs, but I'll share it with you. Every time we have some new hardware, there is always a multi-billion-dollar company built around it. So think of anything. Think of PCs. There are so many multi-billion-dollar operations built around PCs, right? You've got Dell, HP, etc. Think of cameras. Cameras were mostly unused. And what did we get immediately? Instagram, etc., etc. Think of location, GPS, easy, quick GPS, Pokemon Go, one of the biggest explosions there. So I can go on like this. Every single device gets at least a single, but oftentimes a whole industry of multi-billion-dollar operations around it. Well, this chip is sitting there. Secure enclaves are sitting there. And Ava Labs is the #1 technology provider that's using them. And the bridges that we have built are the highest value application on top of a trusted enclave. So it's kind of cool. And there'll be more things to come. Enclave Cross is, so we had the bridges, now we have Enclave Cross. It's in the earliest of days. So they were doing test transactions. They're doing very small transactions with a maximum limit at the moment, and they're still onboarding users. So it's really exciting. Let's see, what else are we seeing this? Yeah, you had to be whitelisted when you looked. Enclave needs whitelisting, absolutely, to use it. It's for institutional users, and it has compliance requirements. So we definitely don't want North Koreans in Enclave. That's just not what it's about. Avacs Towers game. No, I haven't been able to follow any games. It's just, no, it's like, I wish I could. I'm hoping that in the next 2 weeks, I'm going to find some time to do this. I don't have a forecast on any token, including Avacs itself, and certainly not AVXT. But Avacs Stars is, I know the people behind it. They were amazing at the summit, by the way. Very much like the team. I just haven't been able to follow. My apologies on that front. Let's see. So on the wallet, ERC1155 URL templates don't seem to be supported. Feature request. We'll give you swag. We'll give you stuff. Just send it. NFTs have onboarded a lot of users in the last run. From your vantage point, what are your thoughts for Avacs? How can we do something incredible so that the entire world and crypto ecosystem takes notice? That is a great question, Manu, and thank you for bringing it up. It's something that I've been thinking a lot about, especially recently. So we're good. We're not terrible, given that we kind of left it as an orphan. We focused on DeFi and other chains who for technological reasons can't get into DeFi. If your transaction sizes are too small, then you're not going to be able to fit a complex DeFi transaction in. A complex DeFi transaction involves borrowing a couple of trades and then return. You end up interacting with 5 or more smart contracts, and that doesn't fit in a tight transaction. So there are chains out there with very small restrictions on what you can do, and they suck at DeFi. They just fundamentally suck at DeFi, and they can't have performance and be good at DeFi because they get their performance by restricting what you can do. So we're not like that. We focused on DeFi, and now we need to focus on NFTs. So on that front, it's a fickle space, and the NFTs are their own thing, and the assets rise up in value, then they go down in value, etc., etc. And I think the crypto community needs to understand what to expect of these things, right? People have expectations that are kind of like, people treat them as if these things are L1s. They're not L1s. They expect a roadmap from an NFT team. My personal belief is not Ava Labs or anybody else, but my personal belief is that an NFT project should not have a roadmap. They are what they are. You buy them if you like them. You sell them if you don't like them. That's it. So if you have expectation that somebody will do something for you in the background, you're doing something wrong. That's just my belief, and it holds for Avalanche NFTs as well as for Ethereum NFTs. I have disdain for these complicated things that people try to sell. But from my vantage point, yes, the Avalanche community is lagging behind. So I have two requests. I think overall, the foundation needs to put some effort into growing the NFT space. So that's going to have to happen. Ava Labs needs to work closely with people who are building marketplaces, which we do. So Ava Labs was actually building its own marketplace for some time, and we were getting close. And we decided that, hey, there are enough natives building on us that they will just deploy their own, and we shouldn't compete with them. And we got rid of it. That was a very hard call to make. I nixed that project to the dismay of some devs on the internal side, and but it was the right thing to do. As a result, we now have very healthy marketplaces, and all the big marketplaces are looking to come over. So so this is where we are, and I think we need to grow from here. One request from you guys is that as we build momentum in the NFT space, that the people, especially the people who got into Avacs early, use some of your winnings to help out this growing nascent space. So I've done this with a bunch of NFTs. I just buy them and then I give them out to people that I like. I've given some out to university clubs and so on. So just spread the wealth, pay it forward, and allow the NFT artists to find firm footing on our chain. I think together we can make that happen, and I'll make sure that I get all of the stars lined up that I have control over to help take a look in this space. Ooh, Avalanche people are here. Help provide feedback on core. That's the link. So that's the link to how you provide feedback. How do I fix the scammers? Scammers are in crypto everywhere. We are doing our best, and I just don't know what to say or do. But there's a lot to say or do. There is Avacs rug pull prevention. There is another group again with rug pull somewhere in the name. They are all there to evaluate different offerings and to vet the teams. But even with a lot of vetting, you can have somebody who says, "Hey, I'm out of this. I'm not going to deliver on the roadmap, etc., etc." And that's really problematic. But that's just inevitable. So people decide to cash in their reputations. So yes, scammers are everywhere in the permissionless network. Always, never trust, verify. Mahoff is exactly right. Yes, when you saw the summit on YouTube is going to have huge ecosystem. Yes, we have a huge ecosystem, and it's amazing. And the thing we don't have is we don't have the element of time. So in the last bull market, Ethereum essentially grew a lot, and some people who are hodling their ETH, they became huge whales, and those were the ones who were behind that NFT push. And the NFTs are what's sustaining that ecosystem, because DeFi is seasonal. It's with the business cycle of bull and bear cycles. So NFT is sustaining them as a result of their what I would call their hinterland, their user base. We don't have that because we're newer, but with your help and participation, we can grow it. And time is on our side. We need an iOS core wallet. Absolutely. Compatible with Ledger, Nano X, and S. Yes, absolutely. I hear you. We all want that. It's coming. The Ledger support is imminent, if not already there. So it's all getting ready. People want to see their wallets directly from their phones, not from desktop browser. Yes. So we have 3 different independent teams internally. One for the core wallet, one for core mobile, the mobile wallet, and one for the desktop. So they're working in parallel, and it's only the browser extension is did I say the right thing? So core browser extension, core mobile, and then core desktop. Yeah, the risk was very high this year. Yes. Do I think it's time for insurance? So yeah, it's I don't know what the question is here. The insurance system is or the insurance area is very, very ripe for disruption. Hatchy Pocket, yes, for the world's first decentralized IP. Yeah, this is really interesting. It has implications around the fundamental nature of brand growth, distributed ownership. Avacs leaders are missing an opportunity to propel the entire ecosystem by not recognizing this. I don't know. Am I? No. How about this? I'm a human being, and I only have so much time, and I spend it on a whole bunch of protocol type things, or a whole bunch of platform type things, or a whole bunch of tool type things like the core wallets and so on. And also a whole bunch of applications like subnet deployments and so forth. So by the end of that, there's hardly any time to track down what's happening elsewhere in crypto, or to track down every project I would like to track down. So my sincere apologies to everybody who feels slighted. Don't. This is the best I can do. I only have so many cycles. Hatchy Pocket is going to have to be something that I put on my list of things to explore. So you got a mention there. But I don't know anything else. But I've seen it in my mentions. But please don't bombard my mentions. Sometimes projects just start to bombard me. If I see a project that's trying to gain relevance by its association with me, it's an immediate turnoff. It's an immediate turnoff. I think we've seen other founders propel projects sometimes to billion-dollar levels, and then they crashed. So I don't want to be one of those. These projects need to stand on their own. So they need to gain traction on their own. And they need to have a story, a narrative, or at least a technological foundation, definitely a technological foundation, that allows them to meet that narrative, that gives them value. So they have to be good, independent of recognition. So that's very important to me. What is the big news for the future of Avacs or Avacs? That's a great question. I don't know what the big news is. There's so much news, and I share with you, or I go over with you what's happened in the last 2 weeks, last week, every week. So will there be an iOS compatible core wallet? Yes. Core mobile. If so, will it be compatible with any type of hardware wallet? Yes. Ledgers. So that's the roadmap. One other thing I want to do is in the early days, Ava Labs itself operated mostly in a way that wasn't I don't know what we operated, and the code is all open source and everything, but we kind of went on our own path because we had strong enough sense of direction and a place to go to, and a whole bunch of innovation that to the keys to which only we possessed. And so there wasn't really that much input to be had from the external parties. And we've been delivering, software updates on that promise for some time that are clearly, obviously, what the protocol needs. We've been doing protocol development. But as we go forward, and as the protocol becomes more and more mature, it's time to open it up for new feature requests, for new abilities for the underlying platform. So in the next few months, you're going to see us open up even more of the planning processes and slightly more of the roadmap. I don't like opening up the whole roadmap, and I will never be one of these people who is constantly dangling a carrot in front of you. I think that's really bad, and when I see that, it's a huge turnoff. Instead, we will be delivering things, and we will discuss, just as a community, the areas where we need to step in and address. And I'm excited to get your input. Just as we opened up the podcast to participation, I think that was a huge plus. We're going to open up the evolution of the technological roadmap and the platform underneath. And I'll also make. I don't use Reddit. I hardly ever use it. I don't use many other platforms, but I'll be making more of an entry there. Let's see. What are my thoughts on fellow Professor Dawn Song? Don't ask me these questions and put me on the spot. Dawn, I know Professor Song very well, going back many years. So I'm looking forward to meeting her this week sometime. She's in New York City, and looking forward to catching up. We were at IC3 together. That's exactly right. Have I checked out the under-collateralized loan protocol Delta Prime on Avalanche? Well, I have not. That's interesting. So I'll take a look at it. This is an exciting direction. There are all sorts of lending protocols. So the under-collateralized ones I'm curious about. I don't know how they work. I don't know how they're safe. Over-collateralized, that's at least a little easier to understand and explain. Will I be interested in checking out your academic research survey on crypto investors? Of course. I'm not promising any feedback to anyone, but if you tweet at me, I will take a look at your link. I try not to click on links, but if it's a PDF, send it to me. I don't want to earn rewards points staying in a hotel. I want to earn AVACs. How can that be possible? Well, yeah, that's a great idea. So how can that be possible? I wonder how that's possible. So I just want simpler things. I want all of my frequent flyer points, etc., to be part of the same system, and I want liquidity for them. I want them to be able to to be easy to send to people. So let's make that happen, one step at a time. Some say finality isn't important. They're crazy. If it's not. If finality takes forever, then you just sit there waiting for things to be final. Can I explain why it actually is? I don't have the time to do justice to this topic, but I encourage you to play with Avalanche, and then I encourage you to go back to, say, any other platform, any other one, and wait for the full finality duration, right? So with the Ethereum 2 change, MetaMask kind of lies to you. It says your transaction was sent. Well, it was just sent. It's not final. For it to be final, you have to wait. You have to wait quite a bit, about 12 minutes. So just wait 12 minutes. Same thing is final in 1 second on Avalanche. And then once you're hooked, there's no going back. I don't have to explain this in detail. I think a lot of the people here have played with it, and they understand that once you make the transition, you cannot come back. Avalanche Rush. There's a lot to be said about it. I'll defer it to the future. I'm kind of running out of tea. I'm running out of my voice. So I'm going to have to cut this at some point. So there are some great questions here. Jonathan, I hear your question. How will the C-chain scale? C-chain from here on out scales by virtue of fundamental changes to the way it executes. So what does that mean? It needs a new database. So that's critical. It needs a way to reduce state size or manage state. Critical. It needs a faster execution engine. Critical. So all of these are things that I actively think about, and team members at Ava Labs are thinking about. So no promises on any front over there. Some of these are research things. But let me tell you this. I should have mentioned this earlier. In the last week, we had which one? DFK. The DFK subnet was ticking along generally at 80 TPS and peaking to 200 TPS. So for comparison, right, Ethereum was at 15 TPS, and Some others, BSC, which I think has one of the highest usages, is 30 TPS, and Polygon, they have a bunch of what we believe are synthetic transactions. They pump it up to 30 TPS. So that's great, fantastic. And so this thing was doing 80. So that's more than Polygon and BSC combined, and maybe Ethereum also thrown in there as well. And so they were peaking to 200 without any issues. So it's great to be able to see transactions that scale. It's great to see a subnet that scales. So, but I will be revisiting this topic, Jonathan, because I'm over time, and I won't be able to do it justice. But it's a great question. So there are things that are coming at the data level, at the execution engine level, and then there are other things that one can do as well, that are not necessarily on the incredibly obvious path, that I don't want to reveal. But there's a lot of research and thought that goes into how to make these things scale. We do have the fastest consensus protocol, and it's wonderful to be sitting on top of that. We also have the world's largest bridge in terms of TVL. It's because it has superior technology, and we have the world's fastest platform, and we're going to be adding on to it. Will node staking requirements be lowered in the future? Absolutely. I cannot wait for governance to be enabled, and there's a bunch of impediments to that. So it's a little too early in the sort of the tech timeline, and also there's some legal issues with governance, especially in the current climate. The climate has changed in the US, and just the fact that you have governance on your token can cause issues for you. So there are some issues there that we need to work through. The tech issues, I'm 1000% confident about. There's nothing there, but it's just accept, with some slight bit of time and effort, we'll make some technical changes to allow the governance. In fact, we actually have most of that code already implemented, just needs to be brought up to date. But the legal issues we need to wait and get some clarity on. So I don't want Avacs to go from its current just gorgeous position to suddenly have additional regulatory or legal entanglements. Will Avacs delegating come to the core wallet? Yes, everything you do you should be able to do through the core wallet. It's going to be the next wallet platform. We are a group of researchers located mainly in Germany. Fantastic. Academic survey to my email is accessible. Just Google me, find my email, and send it to me. And I don't click on things that come via attachments, but now I know who you are, and now everybody else can pretend to be you as well. So in any case, send it to me. I have an insecure laptop for opening up attachments. I'll take a look. Martin has a good question. Okay. Do I have any specious idea about Avacs stars? No, I don't know. What does you mean specific idea? No, I don't know what the question is here. Specious means something bad. Nobody here has any bad ideas. Nobody mentioned anything negative about Avacs stars, just to be clear. Future market cap. No, I cannot talk about future market cap or token price in general. Will Avalanche ever be suited for IoT stuff subnet? Oh, yes. I love IoTs. I am surrounded by, other than the fact that I cleaned up my, but I'll show you what I have here. I have this cool device, and you couple it with this. I was just playing with this and a bunch of Arduino devices, measuring. It's really cool. It's like a combined signal generator and a, what is it? It's a combined signal generator as well as a voltage, current, and resistance reader. I was doing some Arduino stuff. I love IoT. It's a space that really requires a lot of effort and hasn't really come of age yet. But I can't wait to see an IoT subnet. It's free for the taking. Let's just build stuff. You start it. I'm in. I'll put my own thermostats on it. I know Ted Yin, who was one of the original people who worked on the Avalanche with me, who still works at the Ava Labs, of course. Ted is also very excited about this. He's built his own thermostats, his own PCBs, and so forth. And so I've done a little bit of messing up my my house with some IoT devices. I can't wait to put them on a blockchain. That would be cool. That would be really, really cool. And then we can worry about how to make all that info private and so on. But let's go do it. It'd be so cool. I hear you mention Avacs is decentralized. Yes, it's so incredibly decentralized. There's nobody who can take your coins away. There's nobody who can make unilateral changes to the network. But then you are CEO. I'm the CEO of Ava Labs. Ava Labs is a technology provider. I'm not in charge of the code. Ava Labs collectively writes and puts out some software. And that software is designed and serves the ecosystem. And so how will that transit to a more decentralized ownership? There's no ownership. The network isn't owned by anyone. I cannot unilaterally make a change. All of the patches we put out are in line with all of the expectations they deliver. They make the platform better. And as a result, people adopt them, right? So what does that mean? That means that there is nobody in charge. The tokens cannot be taken away. And suppose there's a big change. I cannot affect it without you all, right? So suppose I want to change things so that, I don't know what, something new happens. You guys wouldn't take that code. That's something new that people don't like. I don't know what that is. Some example. I don't know what it is. But it's an ecosystem act. So it is entirely decentralized. The amount of stake that I hold, et cetera, is just not enough to do anything in the network. So it's all of us together. I do need to convince you to take the changes, and you don't have to take them if you don't like them. The worst thing about Avalanche is that everyone pronounces Avacs differently and the wrong way. Yes, it was all of the original people call it Avacs. That's because it was going to be Ava, AVA. And at the last minute, Binance said, you can't have Ava. So initially we asked Binance, can we have Ava? We're going to do a big thing. It's a big marketing push for us. It's a big branding effort. Please don't make us change it at the last minute. Give us some reassurance that we can have it. And they said, yes, no worries. And we pushed Ava, and it was Ava in our minds. And at the last minute, before listing on Binance, they said, we're going to make you Avacs. And in fact, they said, we're going to make you AVAX in writing. And so nobody knew how to pronounce it. And then everyone calls it Avacs in the outside world. Everybody at Ava Labs calls it Avacs, including me. I'm making a concerted effort now to change it to Avacs. It should now be Avacs. I think we have to go with what our community says. So it's Avacs. Am I worried about the SEC classifying Avacs as a security? No, not at the moment. It's the way Avacs came to be is as by the book as it could be. So we pushed the boundary on everything technological, right? We brought in an entirely new consensus protocol, fresh code from scratch. We're not copying everybody else who came before us. We're not even taking their vision. So we came up with a new network architecture at the time when all of crypto Twitter was pushing against us. So we are on our own path, and it's very, I think it's very aggressive when it comes to technology. But when it comes to everything else, we're incredibly conservative. So we followed a very conservative path. There are a whole bunch of other things we paid attention to in the way this network came to be. So I have zero worries when it comes to this topic. And it's because of that caution that I'm cautious about rolling out governance in this current climate. I'm not a big fan of it being rolled out right now. If you guys all want it, we'll think about it. We should have a community discussion. But I think it's a little premature. We need clarity. So when mobile soon? So no, is there any chance? There's a chance for all sorts of things, but if AVAX is a security, then there is no such thing as a non-security. There is no blockchain L1. So look at the way everything else came to be. look at their timing, look at the way they talked about their system, look at the way they still talk about their system and promise future stuff, etc. And then compare that to what we've done. It's just night and day. Combining NFTs with DeFi, is it possible? Yeah, so Hassan is onto something. There are protocols for this. You can use your NFTs as collateral, but in this market with NFTs, prices generally going down across all chains, you have to be cautious about this. But there are protocols for doing so. That would be cool. You should be able to borrow against your NFTs. It's just that because they're one of a kind, how do you value them? That's really, really hard. Why do people keep asking about Avacs' inflation? I don't know that they do, but there was a report from Messari that miscalculated inflation in Avalanche. And they confused a whole bunch of things when doing that. And ever since then, people get confused by Messari. And so that report is just wrong. In any case, what Messari did is they confused minting of new coins with unlocking of new coins. And so that then they came up with bogus numbers. But all of those unlocks, not all of them, but many of those unlocks have already happened. So that report is way out of date. I think you'll always get these residual things, and people will bring up BS things about you. So every big chain gets this. I'd be worried if people weren't making up FUD about us. So those chains that you never hear any FUD about, those are the dead ones. And those are the non-threatening ones. There's something fundamental about them that makes nobody worry about them. If your chain is going backwards every day, then it doesn't matter what you call yourself. People will let you call yourself an L2 if you want to, etc. Because nobody's threatened by you, right? It's a non-technological non-starter. There's nothing there. So, but if you really have tech on your side, then people get like a little taken aback, and so you start getting FUD, etc., etc. That'll happen. Thoughts on Trader Joe version 2? I can't wait. That's such a great team. I'm a little worried about hang on, V2 or V3? I'm confused. I think, are we talking about the liquidity thing that Trader Joe is about to introduce? That thing is really cool. So Trader Joe as is wonderful, but Trader Joe with the liquidity provisioning that makes it sort of similar to, it's not similar in how it operates, but it accomplishes a similar function as Uniswap version 3. I think that's really cool stuff. I can't wait to see it. I'm a little wary of all new code, as we all should be, but I'm really excited about that effort. We're looking for trying anything good enough alternative to Ava subnet, if possible, for startup projects such as Aptos or Sui or Ava Labs. I don't understand this Aptos or Sui stuff. They're just new chains with a slightly different virtual machine. One could start a new virtual machine. Why not? I could design one right now. It would take me 3 days or something. And then what? Then you have a new virtual machine that you have to get people to use. You need to build a new ecosystem. We did not do that. We instead ended up using the EVM. And I think that's a great way to give back to the EVM community. It's also a great way to bootstrap a lot of projects. It's been a great move for us. So everybody who started with their own projects, they ended up getting a bunch of simple copycat projects, and their bugs haven't been ironed out. So their runtimes are all buggy. And we saw this with the hack of a bridge that was bridging to Solana. So we're going to see other hacks as well. So, whatever. Which ecosystem would be long-lasting? Well, I know one. See if you can guess which ecosystem I think is long-lasting. So is AVAX a security? No, it's not. It's an L1 token. You use it to get things done. Are there any precautions being taken to assure it won't be classified as such? Yes, it is more functional than many other tokens. It has multiple different uses. Like 6 or 7 of them too. Like it's obviously it's used as gas. Obviously it's used for securing the network. Obviously it's used to create other blockchains, and it's used to bridge, etc., etc. So it's got a lot of uses, and people buy them to use them. And I have at times said, don't buy Avacs. Let other people with a need for it buy them. Make it cheap in the early days. So that's that. Will 2,000 Avacs staking continue? Well, that's up to governance. I want to change it. Did they ever get a hair transplant? That's a great question. No. I'd have far more hair if I did that. Yeah, you're welcome. I enjoy these things. I'm going to run, and we're running really late today. Is there any upcoming summit like in Istanbul or Amsterdam? No, but there is an Avalanche Creates program. So there is a house in New Orleans, but there's a house in Berkeley. There's a house in Berkeley that's coming up. That's sometime in maybe 2 weeks or so, 2 or 3 weeks. There's a Avalanche Create house. It's near the Berkeley campus, a little ways away from Shattuck Street, a little down. And you can go there and just hack. I forget the duration, but at least a week of hanging out with other creators, other developers. And at the end of it all, a bunch of us are going out there to see what people built. And we're going to be bringing some friends who are active in the VC community to also see the projects that are there. So come by, join us. It's going to be great. And, I make a point of going to every group and figuring out what they did at these events. I've attended one in Istanbul, one in Barcelona, and so maybe more. And I'm looking forward to this one in Berkeley, and we plan to repeat that around the globe. And so they will be announced one by one. I forget the places that we picked, but all of these major centers of developer activity. What about SmartCon? Yes, it's what about it? Is staking possible through Core Wallet? Not at the moment. Thoughts about Chia and Bram Cohen? No, that's not. This is not. I don't want to share thoughts about other people. I've known Bram since 2003. Wishing him the best with Chia. It's hard to run one of these networks. It's a lot of development that has to happen. There's so many things you need to pay attention to. So Bram had started with one very good idea, but it is what it is now. Do you think IoT is a good focus for Avalanche? Nah, I'm not so sure. In the current market, probably not the best use of time. So there are many other more lucrative areas. And so of all my cycles, I devote the extras, and whenever the little extras I have, I devote to IoT that are extra. But my core function, I think, is to pay attention to the bread and butter stuff. The bread and butter stuff being the main chain, platform optimizations, wallets, tooling, subnets, and new virtual machines, and new fundamental improvements to the underlying software. So IoT, you have all the elements for succeeding in IoT. Go wild. We'll support you. I'll support you, etc. But I'm not sure you should be in on that game for a while, because it's going to take time to build it. But it was really exciting. So intellectually, supremely exciting. Very, very close to my heart. But not something that I'm putting a lot of effort into. But regardless, if you do, then I'm 1,000% with you. I'll support you. Okay. Will you release the WASM subnet soon? Not really. Are there enough WASM users? What's a WASM protocol that I could have if I were to release the WASM subnet? So let me know, and let's have a discussion about it. And if there is going to be if there's going to be any kind of if there's going to be some kind of an uptake, if there's going to be something good to be had, then sure, then why not? We could easily release a WASM subnet. How long do you think the bear market will last, if I were to guess? Well, that's a good question. It's I vacillate between up until the next election in the U.S. Versus next big election, not the one in November, versus short-term rallies. So people are in a very, very down mode, and then so when everyone's down and then something good happens, then you get a very nice rally. So you never know. It's very, very hard to time these things, incredibly hard. And from my own perspective, I'm not a trader at all. So take my suggestions on this front with a big grain of salt. It's it's something that I don't try to time. It's just you just go with it, and you just sort of you do your things based on your own convictions. And I try not to time what's happening in the macro climate. I'm not privy to any of these regulator discussions. They really determine the entire economic future. So the Avenger community is always here. Thank you. That's great. We should make more use of the Avenger word. Let's see. I'd love to host a validator in my lovely city of Tangiers. I've always wanted to go to Tangier, and it is the closest city to Europe from Africa. I would love to visit you there, but maybe someday. I've gotten close, but the closest I got was south of Spain, south of Portugal. Okay, let's see. Any macro predictions? No, sadly no. It's I don't have any. Okay, guys, I'm getting tired here. Oh, last question here. What is this? ERC 4907. There are a whole lot of ERCs. What I think we need to get in the habit of is, sure, we should have compatibility with the ones that have uptake, but we should be advancing our own standards for our own assets. So I want everybody to think about how they would improve Avalanche. And I want you to start to provide that feedback. I will make sure, and I'll work with the community on this, I'll make sure that there are ways for people to discuss. I mentioned this before. I'll be on Reddit more. And for people to submit proposals to improve the platform. We should be having these conversations out in the open more, and we should be more inclusive in our thinking about the future, because it's getting to the time that the ecosystem is so large, and the platform would definitely benefit from growing in areas that we don't anticipate, right? So I know exactly what to do when it comes to optimizing the platform and how to speed up the virtual machines. No problem there. And that's an ongoing race that's going to be with us forever after. It's a never-ending thing. The same way your internet speeds up every year, your platform should be speeding up every year. So that should be ongoing. And I think I'm going to be doing what I can to do that. But there are also other things that we should be discussing in terms of how to grow as an ecosystem. And I would very much like your help. All right, my voice is gone, my tea is gone, and I'm grateful for the discussion today. And I look forward to chatting with you again in about a week's time. Thank you.